be talking about in my section is a little bit, it's similar vibes to what Gabe was talking about, but like with what's happening in the real world. So I will say, I'll be talking about some things that have been done and are very upsetting. So just as a disclaimer / warning, trigger warning, that like I'm going to be talking about stuff that the Republican administration led by Trump has been doing. And it's a lot, and it's all awful. So just letting you know that that's going to be a lot of what I'm talking about. Wicked feels especially timely with the current Republican administration choosing their own scapegoats in the form of immigrants, BIPOC humans, trans and disabled humans, as well as women. Although the scapegoating of those populations is nothing new or creative, the impact is especially damaging as we hear the horror stories. And in Wicked, the scapegoat is the animal population of Oz, who face the erasure of their history, their voices, rights, and their autonomy. It sounds familiar because it is. Both throughout American and European history, among other countries. Like, lots of places throughout the world have done awful things. A lot has been done specifically by America and European countries. And in this instance, in thinking how Wicked can relate to our experiences today, there are many parallels to what is happening in the current Trump-led Republican administration that very similar to how, like, first it was the animals, and then it was Elphaba. Just because they say they're never only just one person. It's never just one. Literally, it's never just them. A few days ago, he was like, "What if Americans who are bad went to El Salvador and also?"
Or just like, thinking about the like restrictions for like your license and your passport renewals if your name is different. Yeah, the SAVE Act. Yep. Yeah, the fact like, and it's supposed to be targeting trans folks, but it's also targeting married women, or married femme folk. You know?
So that's fun. That's not. Thinking of the erasure of DEI, mass firings, attempts to remove and rewrite historical record in museums and schools and more, the damage is actively being done. And an example of this is the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS, which provides grants to libraries and museums nationwide, has been effectively shuttered and its staff placed on administrative leave, according to USA Today. Almost like how Shiz was shuttered of animal history. If you like remember in the beginning, like when Elphaba has like the big scene when she arrives at Shiz and like everything's in the air and like a bench hits the wall and underneath of the wizard's face is a bunch of animal professors that were honored
the
before,
animal history
that was covered up by the wonderful wizard. It's very similar in that libraries and places of knowledge, museums, are being attacked essentially to rewrite the history that is there to be more sympathetic to the oppressor, essentially. And we've already had, additionally, a woman arrested for a miscarriage, although luckily I did see that the case recently in Georgia, those charges were dropped, in part likely to the national outrage that sparked in her defense.
Is that the young girl?
She was like 24, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's good. I didn't know that it was dropped.
Yeah, I didn't know either until I was researching for this, and it was, luckily. And I think there are other cases, but that's the most recent one that, like, everyone was reasonably very up in arms about. And I think, like, because of that response that they were able to sway Georgia. So whether we are speaking about the countless illegal deportations that have already taken place, kidnappings, in the individuals were not granted due process, or in some cases were incorrectly deported, with the specific example found in the case of Kilmore Abreu Garcia, the Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to an El Salvadorian prison last month, or the attacks on transhuman rights, thinking of the trans woman who was recently arrested in Florida for using the bathroom, according to the New York Times. The issue is the same, that entire communities have been unjustly scapegoated as the enemy and spread fear and hatred, and as Gabe stated, is a tool for manipulation. And they're really counting on the fact that like we're not paying attention enough, or we're just going to believe them when they're like, we didn't have funding, that we're saving you money, we're helping America, these people are criminals or terrorists or unsafe for us to be around. Like DHS recently had a whole campaign about that. And like people knowing that like innocent people are being kidnapped and detained like at an astounding rate. So although the Republican administration has deported less people than the Democratic administration under Biden, according to Reuters, arrests of ICE are higher than they had been in 7 years, according to The Guardian. Some things that have been done are so evil that it's hard to even fathom their validity. An example being the 10-year-old recovering from brain cancer who was a United States citizen that was deported to Mexico with her undocumented parents while they were literally on the way to the hospital, according to PBS and NBC. These are just a few examples of many. And I share these examples to highlight the similarities to how, like, what we see play out in Wicked is like the systemic erasure of animal kind and their talent and their history and their place in society. It all happens very quickly, and that people adjust so quickly to that erasure that it's very concerning. So it's a pretty direct parallel, to be very honest. And as Gabe unpacks, the treatment of Dr. Dillamond and his colleagues showcases an administration's attempt to kidnap and erase animal kind. This erasure is just like what's happening right now. And the Wizard, like our current administration, wants us to be in cages and not speak. And they especially want the students to be ignorant of the experiences of the oppressed, so they are hiding them away from view. The Republican administration and Trump, like the professor who brings the cub in a cage to class, relishes in their
cowardly
damage.
cub.
Yep. Relishes in this damage. An example of this is how they used AI to create images of innocent human beings being arrested and erased and published that to the White House website. Like, it was really... It feels made up, and it's not. And that's what's so scary about it. And additionally, by attempting to dismantle the Department of Education, they aim to impact the next generation, similar to how Shiz was systemically changing their curriculum and erasing professors in order to impact the next generation, to prevent them from learning to read about this history and speak out against what is being enacted. And the erasure of the Department of Education specifically is a goal for us eventually to have decreased literacy and even more ignorance amongst the population, because people who cannot read and are not well informed are easier to manipulate. And Wicked calls this out in the Omahian, I don't know if that's the term for people from Omaha, but Wizard of Oz, a performer in fraud, choosing animals as a scapegoated enemy from within to flee personal accountability. An interview with Winnie Holzman at the Denver Center, they speak to the musical and also Gregory Maguire's novel in a Q&A that place did. They asked the question, there's a lot of political content in Gregory Maguire's novel. Did you include this in the musical? And this is about like the Broadway musical, not the film specifically, but politics is very much embedded in the story. The whole story is about a political leader who is unmasked as a fraud. Just like in our world, there's prejudice, there is darkness, there is the forces of evil. I don't want to dictate what people should take away from it, but there is this whole idea of scapegoating people because they are different or because their message is unpopular, because they are saying what people don't want to hear. The idea of making that person into an evil figure is so relevant in our lives. And I'm also going to cover how throughout the film and then also in reality, there is a rewriting of history, as well as like just a lack of, or it really just highlights the importance of both historiography and media analysis and media literacy. So I'll give you some 2 quick definitions to steer the conversation, which is really just me talking to you, listener, but I appreciate you either way. So historiography is the study of how history is written and the writing of history, and media analysis and media literacy are critically examining media by questioning authorship, purpose, and economics. So who created this? Who was included or excluded in its creation? When was it made? Why was it made? What action does it want from me? Who is the target audience? Who funded it? Who profits from it? These are questions we should be asking when we consume any kind of media, where we're like, what are they trying to get me to do? And I will say, in watching Wicked, and I mean, I have not seen the original musical or know what happens in the second act, but just watching the first one, if anything, I think in conveying their message, they have an awful lot to lose under the current administration. So I take with that as you will. It makes me trust the source material more. But Wicked demonstrates the importance of media literacy and historiography by retelling the Wizard of Oz from the villain's perspective. It reveals how governments manipulate historical records and exploit fears to oppress groups. And in the original story, the Wicked Witch is purely evil while the wizard is wonderful. A narrative written by the victors, as Gabe said, without offering empathy for the antagonists. And it doesn't account for the perspective of the Wicked Witch of the West, and it doesn't offer her a name or a history. And even I didn't even realize that it makes sense in hindsight, but that in murdering Nessa Rose and casting her as wicked as well, that has a whole other bunch of layers, especially considering how vilified both in her blackness but also in her disability. So that's a whole other thing that I am anxious to see how they do.
She does some wicked stuff, I will say.
Yeah, that's
She's
fair.
a little wicked herself, but it's fine.
I validate that. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
People are complex, I think that's important. That's what I like about it. Yeah. She still doesn't deserve a house on top of her.
Yeah, she does not. Absolutely not. It's a whole thing. But we see in Wicked, we discover Elphaba's humanity and learn that she isn't wicked at all, but has experienced and witnessed deep injustices that shape her worldview. And the musical illustrates how corrupt administrations sway public opinion through meticulous control of education and history. They are the writers, they are the rewriters of what is taught and what is pedestaled. Most students at Shiz University accept pitched falsehoods so easily being manipulated, with privileged individuals willing to sacrifice all animals for their own self-preservation. It's like what they say, when fascism is on the rise, it's don't self-silence, don't silence ahead of time out of fear, because that's what they're counting on you to do. And I will say, I struggle with that because it's scary as heck out here. But we have to persevere and power through anyway, even though it's terrifying. Because you know what? You just gotta. It's a lot. Otherwise, you're going to be next. It's a whole thing.
Yeah. What is it? They say, don't, don't adhere. I forget the word for it, but it's just don't already listen to them. do the work for them.
Don't comply ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because it's you already are on the list. If you're not a white man, you already are on the list, and you serve nobody by being a pick-me. So
honestly, if you're watching us, you might be on a list. Sorry, but also not. You're welcome.
Yeah, learning is hard, and also is ouch, and then also you're wow, I'm just stressed all the time, and people are you could just not be stressed and go off into the sunset and just think everything's cool, and I'm I literally can't.
I don't think you can.
I don't. Now I know too much.
Yeah.
So by the end of Act 1, Elphaba emerges as heroic, only said to be villainous because the system's moral framework is fundamentally flawed. So as Gabe said, history is recorded by the victors. A lot of my college education centered around that, and it's essentially what makes someone a hero, and it's ethically sound to question our heroes when someone's that guy's great, and I'm cool, who are they?
Yeah, what was
why
their deal?
Are they great? What did they do? What were their flaws? What do we benefit from them being it? What do you get out of saying they're a hero? Lots of questions.
What happened to the other people involved? Yeah. What were they fighting for?
We're fighting terrorism and evil. Why?
Who says?
Yeah. Did we enact all the things that facilitated that to happen in the first place? History is typically, as I said, we are told people are heroes. Many historical figures that we were taught to admire, specifically thinking to my childhood, had morally questionable actions, from the founding fathers who owned slaves to Christopher Columbus, who played a significant role in the genocide of native peoples, to kings in England like Henry with the VIII, because I don't. Thank you. I don't know how to Roman numerals, and I appreciate you for that. Henry VIII, who reshaped religion for personal gain. Like most of the kings were a problem, but specifically thinking that's the one I always remember because he had all the wives and was the whole time. We should question narratives presented as heroic, especially those missing perspective from the vilified groups. I specifically remember in high school, a teacher presented us like with, it was a war that happened. It was pitched as a war. And then they also showed us the people who were attacked in that war, their perspective on the war, and then the American perspective of the war, and had us read both and say what we thought actually happened. And that like really changed my entire perspective on how to look at history and like historical documents. So shout out, I don't remember his name, but shout out to that high school teacher. Consider who wrote these accounts and what they gain in their portrayal. Consider whose perspectives and voices are missing. Governments manipulate historical records, like historically. Like usually when people will go to war, they'll destroy universities, colleges, places of worship, places like the hell.
They burned down the Library of Alexandria for a reason. It just happens, you know. It's during like it's in the playbook.
Yeah. Like when they were conquering like the Ottoman Empire, that's a big thing too. They burned like everything. So essentially, people, when they're trying to portray a certain story, will leave out the voice of somebody who they're telling you is a villain. Governments manipulate historical records to control public perception, defining laws and moral standards. And the more one learns, the more one questions authority and develops empathy. The more, which is super interesting because it explains why some political and religious leaders recently have been very vocal about the condemning of empathy, stating it's a sin, which explains why some people, like, it makes sense that they're trying to do that because that's the best way to get people to, like, care about other people. Those lacking in empathy and knowledge are easier to manipulate. So if you tell you it's a sin, an arbitrary thing that's going to freak a bunch of religious people out, they're less likely to even consider it because it's giving you a barrier to the promised afterlife. You're like, oh, I can't sin. So obviously I can't be empathetic and I can't learn about this because it's just not safe. And then they force that upon their kids and so on and so forth. So those lacking in empathy and knowledge are easier to manipulate, particularly through religion, which governs belief about afterlife. Labeling something as a sin instills fear. So in Oz, the wizard deifies himself, manipulating Ozians' religious and prophecy for his personal advantage. So yeah, it all just like ties really perfectly into what's happening in the world right now in a way that's very upsetting and stressful.
It's unfortunate that in all the iterations of this, right, since McGuire's piece, which, like, I appreciate the author talking about how political it is. There's a lot of craziness in it. So it's a crazy one. But it's very clear what he's trying to do. And the fact that he gave a name to this character that was just labeled a villain just cause, and also gave her history, gave her motivation, and made her sympathetic is really important. And to see from that it grow into the musical and how long that has been running, right? Then to this, so that new audiences can experience it. It becomes more accessible because, and it's still a musical. So some people are going to, hate it for that. There's some, even me, oh my God, hey, Nessa, something to confess. I'm like, shut up. Shut up. Also, it's a pet peeve of mine. I hate the way that they like mention munchkins in the song. Like a munchkin so small-minded. Like, excuse you.
Yeah.
A little munchkin boy's like, just switch that out with a with a different word here in America.
Make new things.
Yeah, no, I get
how we describe people. Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. It's still, I mean, it's they did wonderful things by having the actors they did as Munchkins. Like, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think, like, in summation, that like, I'm thankful that something like this exists and that it can, you know, hopefully inform and inspire new generations to experience it. It's just also really unfortunate that it remains to be as on par with our current horrors, right? Like, that you, instead of it being something that we can look back on and be like, remember when this horrible thing happened? It's like, this is actively happening to us.
Yeah.
It's really miserable.
Yeah, it's really hard to, like, I think fully even be happy about the musical in knowing how close our reality is to it.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
It's a bit of a bummer.
It's like a big bummer.
But I'd say
deeper than that, obviously. I feel like that minimizes it a little bit. That's not what I mean. But, like, it's depressing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, escape into the magic of it. It's a fun, beautiful, fancy world. I think it's aesthetically really gorgeous to watch. And I think that's also on purpose, right? Like, just being in Emerald City and seeing all the performity there.
Just one day.
Yeah. Yeah. In the history, when they tell it, they're like, they were the whitest whites and they were the most pure. And I was like, ooh. I was like, I get like color's a big thing here. But like, ooh. Also, let's not talk about a great white wizard, okay?
Yeah. And also, like, thinking of, like, the Wizard of Oz and, like, kind of the propaganda that it was a little bit too, with, like, the symbol of Western purity taking out the green skinned witch. I was like,
yeah. And the witch, like, I mean, it's one of the most notable representations of the crone, which is like, so there's a whole other conversation, right? Of like villainizing aged women that aren't mothers, right? And that she's like, she was just hideous just cause, like, not to mention the poor actress who suffered burns on set, and then the paint was also irritating. Like, she was she was burned twice. No, it was like really irritating though, but it was flammable and she was burned twice. She was set on fire once, and then she was like, okay, you're not going to do that again. They're like, we're going to have to do it again. And they set her on fire again. She suffered really bad burns. She can't act anymore. But
that's horrible.
Not to even mention what happened with Judy Garland, what she was going through, and all of the uppers and downers they had that child on, and they called her fat. Lots of stuff. It's that silver screen of history that I'm a big buff of. There's a lot. There's also there's a fun fact for people. The day that the Queen of England died, like, it was pretty recently. The Broadway musical, or I don't know where it was. I think it was Broadway, but they had to come out in like England, because it wasn't Broadway, it was England. Yeah, and they were like, you know, let's have a moment of silence for the Queen, and the play is going to proceed as is. We're not changing it. And they had to say that because literally the first line of the play is good news. She's dead. It's just like, oh my God, it's so funny to me to think like them coming out like, really
this might hit you extra hard today, specifically.
We're not talking about her. God bless her.
It's not. You know? Yeah. Oh, jeez. I do remember that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Good news, she's dead as well, though, I'm going to be honest. Talking about being rewritten. History by the victors and rewriting. Who's a hero.
Like it was done systemically in order to validate slavery.
And all the other harmful things that awful country did. Yeah. Our country's awful, too, but it's not just us.
They were the OGs.
You started it. We learned it from you. In Italy.
Evil Daddy.
But in Spain. Italy and Spain. Yeah. We learned it from all of you.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was our Wicked episode.
Here we are.
And as a disclaimer for folks who are watching this, and if the world is even more on fire or less on fire or a different kind of fire at the time that you're watching this, we filmed this in early April 2025.
Yeah.
So just so you know where our facts are coming from, it's at that time.
Yeah.
So I can't predict the future of when we post this. It might be different. And I apologize for what we're probably experiencing at that time. Or maybe yay. You know?
Yeah, we'll find out.
I don't know.
Who knows? The future is up for interpretation.
Unlimited.
We're waiting for it.
Together we're unlimited. Anyway, don't get married.
Delete your kids. I'll also say, if we're ever like, oh, we're on the edge of a giant building and we're like, we need to go jump off of this to fight the oppressors, I'd jump with you, friend.
Aww. Well, I'm Glinda in this scenario, so I would jump with you.
Well, you better be jumping with me.
I would jump with you. I would jump. I'm not staying behind. That seems really like I would be more uncomfortable staying there.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know the original plot, but it seemed like she like wanted to, like she tried and then they pulled her back.
Yes.
So.
Well, she didn't. She wasn't gonna.
Yeah.
She did give her the cloak. It's like, you're gonna be cold up there, baby.
She thought about it though, is all I'm saying.
It's like, ooh, but it'll be dirty.
That sounds hard.
High up there. Sounds scary, you know? She wasn't built for a hard life. She's delicate. And that's okay. You know, you fight the battles where you can. And that's the way that it works for her. And so, you know, she's got to do it. She can't be coming down here and being like, thank God, she's dead. You'll be doing that, girl. I get it. Anyway. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Bye.